These are the most insane punishments during the Persian Empire. The people who ruled the Persian Empire had a strong commitment to fairness. The procedures for determining a criminal sentence were quite specific and rigorous. They held that no one should be put to death for a first crime and that all of a criminal's positive attributes should be taken into account when making a decision on punishment. The person who was about to suffer deserved it. But the Persians made sure you paid for it if you deserved it. The punishments they devised were some of the most creative and harsh ever. As you may imagine from your darkest fears, justice in ancient Persia was not always instant. Turning your flesh into seating. Seeing an opportunity to set an example, King Darius had Persian judge Sisamenes executed when he was found taking a bribe. According to Darius, the Persian court should be completely unbiased and fair. He intended to guarantee that Sisamenes' successor wouldn't repeat the same error. Putting an end to his life was only the beginning. Darius ordered that once his neck had been slashed, his executioners flay off all of his flesh and turn it into strips of human leather. After that, he directed them to construct a chair out of Sisamenes' hide and stitch it together. The new judge would have to use a chair fashioned from human flesh going forward. Even worse, Sisamenes' own son took his position as king. Every day he would have to sit on a chair fashioned from his father's flesh while he presided over the trials taking place in Persia. King Darius was relieved because he thought they finally had a judge who would remember the consequences of taking bribes. Being submerged in a sea of rubble. Asphyxiation by ash was a horrible death sentence in ancient Persia. Only the most heinous of offenders, such as those guilty of high treason or sins against the gods, were ever sentenced to such a horrific fate, and the horror was real. The Persians maintained a hollow tower that was 23 meters in height and contained only ashes and wheels. There was a sloping platform at the top, and the offender would be rolled up to it and thrown in. Dropping like a stone, he'd eventually reach the tower's core. Even if the fall broke some bones, the ashes would keep him alive long enough to experience the more painful and drawn-out death they had intended. The wheels would be turned by the executioners. The ashes were forced into the inmate's nose and mouth, being whirled around by men outside the cell. He would breathe them in and eventually die of asphyxiation from the ash. It's not an uncommon punishment. The Bible itself has examples of it. At the top of the Tower of Ashes, the Persians execute a corrupt Jewish priest. After his death, his loved ones won't be able to bury him. At the end of the Bible's account, it states, and it was precisely what he deserved. Like a torrent of liquid gold down your throat. Valerian, the Roman emperor, died a horrific death after being captured by Persian forces. His untimely demise is a ring of death from the fantasy series Game of Thrones. The truth, however, is even more terrible. Valerian was the monarch of Persia's personal slave. His wrists and feet would be bound when he was marched before his soldiers. In every possible manner, he made fun of him. Shapur would force Valerian to kneel on his hands and knees before mounting his horse. Shapur murdered his plaything when he became uninterested in it. Valerian was drenched in molten gold. He then had the Roman emperor preserved in taxidermy. As a prize of wealth and human remains, the corpse of Valerian was skinned and packed with straw before being displayed in a Persian shrine. Dividing society with trees. Shocking penalties were meted out to thieves in late-era Persia. If you were discovered stealing from a rider or harassing one on the highways of the empire, you would be split in two as a punishment. In order to execute someone, executioners would draw the tops of two trees as close together as possible and then rope them together. They'd haul the inmate over and bind his or her legs to the tops of the two trees. At that point, they'd sever the rope that bound the trees together. With the criminal still attached, the two trees would suddenly release, tear apart at high speed, and shoot back upright. Because of the force, the body would be split in two. A split man would be dangling from the branches in an instant. At the spot where he had just robbed a defenseless pedestrian, his corpse would be left hanging over the roadway. The Persians thought that anybody traveling through this area would be given a sobering lesson about the consequences of a thief's lifestyle. And that's all. We hope you found our video helpful. Please comment down below and like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching.